I'm going to keep it real. I look forward to this anime, I think, the most out of anything that airs for this current anime season. And the only thing that comes close to this would probably be Frieren. Frieren is really good. And if you saw me talk about it last week, you know why. It's a really good series. But this series, as I've already said in my first impressions in the follow-up videos, I went in completely unaware of what this is. People were telling me I should give it a watch. I sit down, I watch it, and man, every single episode just makes me fall more and more in love with this anime. And it's so good, man. Like, it's not perfect. There's obviously things, if I really want to dive into it and rip it apart, there's definitely things I could find. But it is so good and enjoyable. And as I've talked about, the layers to it, if you're a gamer, like if you're someone that just loves games, this is definitely an anime for you. This is an anime that will make you really just fall in love with it if you have pre-knowledge of just gaming. It's kind of like the thing with Gintama. Anyone that has ever watched Gintama, if you know a lot of the references and parodies, you really can appreciate what Gintama is trying to say with many of its different arcs and episodes. And I feel like that same exact thing could be said about, Shangri-La Frontier that we have for this anime season. And it's hard to believe that we're already 6 episodes deep, by the way. Can we talk about that? Like, we're already 6 weeks into this anime season. It's like we're already at the halfway point. That's literally what this makes me realize, is that most anime end in 11 to 12 episodes. So the fact that, this is episode 6, it's the halfway point technically for a lot of anime. So it's wild to think about that. But anyways, getting on topic though, I want to talk about what this episode really did that just blew my mind. And I didn't realize this until I finished the episode. Like, I sat down and I thought about it. This 20-minute episode was pretty much just Sanraku sitting in front of the entrance to the third town, not being able to get into the town because of player killers and PvP, and just getting some backstory on some characters. And literally, there was, like, in all essence, not really much progression in terms of story for this episode. I mean, there was progression. I'm just saying, like, in terms of getting to destinations and moving on to what, Sanraku is trying to do, this episode was just a guy trying to deal with people trying to kill him, like PvPers. That was literally, if I wanted to simplify this episode. But man, was it masterclass in terms of the way they kind of showcased it throughout this episode. And it is so painful that this series seems to be underrated. Like, I feel like this series deserves just so much more love and attention because it is truly a good show. Like, it is so unreal how good this is. And it's like we're witnessing something that was like the Dark Horse or an underdog series that kind of came out of nowhere and really is just blowing all my expectations away. And, like, I really hope that this series does get a continuation. Like, I know that that's still many, many weeks off, but, like, I hope that when everything is said and done, there is a season 2 announced for this show, because this has really just been such a fun watch every single week. I can't describe it any more than that. But, let's get into this episode. So, there was some references that were made in this episode to other games. Like, we have this whole element here about players basically taking over the world because they're really the only way to really benefit or progress in this game is by being a thief or stealing from other players, being a PvPer, and creating your own system, etc. And we get introduced to, like, the Pencil Knight or the dystopian queen that is kind of controlling everything behind the scenes, or not really behind the scenes, honestly. And it's a really interesting backstory for this character, finding out, this history that, Sanraku has with her and other characters that's going to be participating in, SLF, that is, where the main story is taking place. I think it's really nice that we got a lot of this, like, character building and character progression throughout this episode, setting up future plot points to wonder where it's going to go next. It legitimately is a great episode for that. And I think that, one of the big elements that this episode does is it references survival games. Like, it obviously tries to reference, like, MMOs and stuff, because the genre of this story is like an MMO. But when I was watching this episode and they were talking about, like, people stealing from each other, wait until they gather resources because resource gathering was just so low that it wasn't even worth it, it reminded me of Ark. I don't know how many of you out there are Ark Survival Evolved players or has ever touched the game, or let's say if you've, played Rust as well, those type of games, this entire element where, like, our characters are trying to find high-grade items and resources and stuff and try to, like, farm and all that, and it takes forever. That is literally how Ark and Rust is. Like, anyone that played, like, 1x rates on Ark when it first came out, or, like, how Rust is with some servers, then you'll know that the very core essence of the start of this reminds you of that. Now, another thing, too, it reminds me of is obviously, like, a gacha game or a pay-to-win game, because usually when you have a game like this, to where it's, like, the resource rates are very low, like, just drop rates and all that, usually it's where people pay to progress. Like, you have, loot boxes, gacha games, all that type of stuff, and clearly that element hasn't really been tackled into yet. I am curious if, this series will dive into that, because it's very obvious, once again, that the author of this series is in love with gaming. Like, there is a real big, like, infatuation with, gaming. Like, they love it deeply because of the way so many of those themes of games are just depicted within this story. But, I am curious if we will get those elements. If you're a original source reader, do let me know. Just don't spoil. Just let me know, though. Will we get something along the lines of that in the future? Because I think that's pretty cool. But anyways, back onto the topic, though. This entire segment of finding out about this world and stuff, I was like, yeah, this legit looks exactly like what you would expect from, like, Ark or Rust and all that, and then people being taken advantage of, going to war, rebel forces. It's like tribes or people going up against each other to gather resources, take out the big head honcho. That's exactly what this felt like to me. Now, besides all of that, this character right here, this shaman/beastmaster character, really took me by surprise. Like, she got introduced last episode, and, she was kind of like a spotlight within this episode. She comes and saves Sanraku from the PK or Pencil, or Arthur Pencilgon, or whatever, how she says it. But basically, she comes in to save him and starts to hold off the PKers and stuff. And it's pretty cool, especially towards the end, like the final moments of the episode. She reveals she has, like, another counter, like another curse and stuff, and it looks really creepy. Like, here, I'll, like, even show it. The movement of this is, like, super freaking creepy. Like, it's like a skeletal, weird red skeletal hand with more fingers than normal. It doesn't really have, like, a thumb or anything. It looks like full-on fingers. It's horrifying looking. And so she tries to use this as a curse, so I am curious on what this actually is going to do to, Pencil. But, regardless, this character really caught me by surprise while I was watching. I was like, she's a pretty enjoyable character. And design-wise, pretty cute, too. Really nice design. I really love the design of her, because it's like she does fit into that archetype of players within MMOs, because anyone that has, like, ever played an MMO, this could actually be put on Pokemon. A lot of people, when they play Pokemon, they, obviously will go after either the strongest team, or some will just pick the team because of their favorites, or because they're cute. They always have their different motivations. And she's that type of player that likes the cutesy stuff, and just wants to tame cute animals and all that, really cool animals, and that's what she wants. So she wants a Vopal Bunny. So, I don't know, I really like her character. She really caught me by surprise, and I just really have been enjoying her. Anyways, besides all of that, though, I mean, the episode is fairly simple. I mean, we also have, the friend that wants to get close to Sanraku, that is, trying to meet him in the game. She appears and actually saves the day. Like, she actually comes in and runs in full knight armor across the land from the second to the third town to be able to save him, which is, I gotta be honest, that's pretty wild. It's pretty whack. But, I like her too. Like, all of the characters in this show is pretty good. They're getting nice character progression, characterization, and they're not annoying. They're not annoying characters. They don't feel like they're just throwaway characters. They do feel very developed and being properly established within these episodes. And I'm curious to see how they're going to intermingle with Sanraku as the story progresses. But stopping there for a moment, I also want to take a few moments to talk about the art and animation. The art animation's always been good since the first episode, but man, this art animation for this episode was truly just spectacular. Like, the whole fighting sequence here with Pencil versus Sanraku was just, like, mind-blowing. It wasn't as good as, like, Freerun or Jujutsu Kaisen, but it looked really good. And once again, this is a series that came out of nowhere. It's not something that was being really advertised or built up by a lot of people. The only people that really were kind of advertising the series was just the fans of, like, the original source. They kind of let me know about it once it started airing, and I heard the name a few times in the past, but nothing too ridiculous. And so, for a series that, obviously you wouldn't think would be that important in the grand scheme of things, it's clear that the staff and everyone that's working on the show really does care about what they're working on, and they're putting every effort that they can into it. This is legit amazing work that this series has been getting, to the VA work, to the art and animation. There is a lot of love and passion that's poured into this show, and once again, we have another fantastic episode that is just being displayed here. I really cannot wait to see how, like, Sanraku gets out of this situation, if he parties up with any more people, or if he goes his own separate way. We'll have to see, but just so far, great story, man. It has blown every expectation I've had out of the water, and just made me want to crave to read the original source. But okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, everyone. Chibi out.